Welcome to the Cosmic Cadence podcast. We are your hosts, Kate
and G. And this is the podcast where we decode the cosmic vibes of your favorite albums and the people that help bring them into the universe. On today's episode, we're talking about a favorite record from an artist that I would say you're probably, between the two of us, a bigger stan for this one. But I definitely have an appreciation. And when this first album came out, I was obsessed. We are talking about none other than Badlands by Halsey. I'm just going to open it up with my favorite line that got me hooked. Raised on Biggie and Nirvana. When I heard that, I was like, this girl is me and I am her. Tell me more. So I am so excited to dive into this. I think this will be very timely given that she's been back in the public eye lately. She has a new album coming out, which I am so excited for. I feel like the rollout for this album has been immaculate, between the throwbacks to nostalgia and different eras to I'm obsessed with the song Lucky. So much to dive into. I'm excited. I'm ready. Are you ready, Kate?
I'm so ready. Well, as you said, most people that know me, like, I don't even have to tell them. They're like, yep, Kate's a Halsey stan. Like, I I have loved everything that she's put out. I re-wore my Halsey shirt today. I had to because this will come into play. This is actually a shirt I got at the Badlands album show that she played. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so not only will we be diving into this album's birth chart, we will be taking a little trip down memory lane because this album came out in 2015, almost 10 years ago, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I think when we were coming together to figure out what albums we wanted to cover, this one was a no-brainer. I think this, like, listening to this album again, it's been a minute, but it took me back to that time period of, like, I think I was in grad school. Tumblr was at its peak. Everybody was wearing turquoise hair. It was just an amazing time. And sometimes I wish I could go back.
Yeah, the turquoise hair, I miss that so much. Yeah, I think this is still thus far my favorite Halsey album. I mean, I love them all, but the last one actually gave it a run for its money. I know not everyone loved that one. It has a long title, but the one with power. If I can't
Yeah.
have love, I want power, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I do love that one, but this holds, I think it's the nostalgia factor for me. I actually, you can't see it right now, but I have the vinyl literally framed up on my wall. It means that much. This was, let's see, 2019, May 8th, 2019. She played at Webster Hall. I believe it was like um a couple days of shows because she was playing like an album a night. So I obviously had to go to the Badlands one. It was amazing. It was so cool too because back in the like when she was first starting out, I actually missed the opportunity to go see her at the studio at Webster Hall. So I think the first time I ever saw Halsey, it was actually the turquoise hair era. Was at Firefly, the festival in Delaware.
Mm.
Which, now that I think about it, very full circle. The last time I saw Halsey, it was at Firefly in Delaware, for her last album. And I have a great story about finding my cat, but I'm gonna save that. You know what? I think people need to see. So give me 1 second. She's going to make an appearance. Lucy, do you want to be
Lucy.
for a second? Here is our little mascot, Lucy.
Lucy, hi.
She's actually also a Halsey stan because
Aw.
as I said, I found her the night that I went to see Halsey.
She looks so over it. She's like, "Can you put me down now?" I didn't
I
ask
don't
for
know
this.
if she likes the limelight, but this is so
She's so
yeah.
cute. Okay, episode's over. Hi, Lucy.
Yeah, okay. So we'll do a separate part of that. But yes, in general, this album, I listened to it so much when it, like, back in the day when it came out. I was really, for me, this is actually like an album because of the time that I listened to it. If I ever want to experience that emotion, I go back to this album and it kind of, brings me back to that time period. And it's funny you say that it will be 10 years next year. I never realized how full circle this album is for me. It was really a time period where I was starting to like learn my worth. And I feel like this album found me at a time when I was coming out of a period of being around some people who didn't value me in the way that I should be valued. And I think that's why this album really resonated with me, because it's a lot of finding yourself and finding your voice and kind of like paving your own path and not letting others dictate how you live your life. It was definitely a period of growth for me in my 20s where really pushed my comfort zone. I went on a 2-week Europe trip, had never been out of the country before, and that really opened my mind to, wow, like I was living in a bubble and there's so much more to see. It was really awesome being just in a different place where I didn't know like the language and whatnot. And again, feeling that uncomfortable feeling, and that really pushed me to grow. And so when I came back, I really looked for other experiences that I hadn't been through before to push me in the same way, and that I can for sure say that that summer was so fun. And like I feel like it was such a rapid period of growth for me because I chose to go out of my comfort zone. And interestingly, I hadn't thought about this until you said the 10-year part, but like I'm in somewhat of a similar time. I mean, I'm not at all who I was when I was however old. I was probably 24-ish at that time, but I'm in a transitional period again now in my more adulthood, and it's just kind of funny how these albums come back into our lives, sometimes in like literally a circular motion.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know the complete opposite of everything you just said. I feel like this period of my life, the further I get from it, the more it feels like a blur to me. So this, while this album, did mean a lot to me, I don't think it's one of the ones that meant as much as it seemed to for you for that time period. And that's simply because I feel like I was kind of just maybe going through the motions. Like I said, I was in grad school, or I was in, I think, my final year of grad school. I was focusing on getting a job and like trying to find my place in the world and all of that, where like I was living very only focused on what's in front of you,
So,
basically.
like
Like
tunnel vision.
tunnel vision. Yes, I was very much in like tunnel vision mode of just like I just got to get a job, I got to get into my dream field, all of that. That like anything else I did, anything else that was going on at that time, like I don't remember it, and that's kind of sad and scary in some ways. And like I think about it because I know my time wasn't wasted, but it feels like I kind of wasted a lot of time if, in a sense where it's like I wasn't really, you know, you can chase a dream and still live your life and focus on what else is around you. Whereas I think I was so dead set on like trying to finish school and trying to get into music and all of this stuff that like I didn't really travel. I didn't like, I hung out with my friends, but like it wasn't like all the time. You know what I mean? Like I would go for months before seeing my friend. Like, so I think if anything, this album kind of was like not a moment in time, but it was there for a period of my life that ultimately the only thing I remember about it is the music. Which sounds more grim than it actually is. It all worked out. But yeah, it was a great album. For me, it just reminds me of Tumblr. Like I remember um seeing the little cut downs of her videos and stuff that would be all over everyone's Tumblr pages, and like I said before, the turquoise hair and all of that. So for me, for me it makes me think more so of a period where I'm realizing now as I'm saying this, a lot of my life was lived online, but not even like in the traditional sense. It was just me kind of not monitoring, I guess, or being a watcher of everybody else's lives online. That's kind of what this album reminds me of.
Yeah, that is actually very interesting that it does sound like we were living two opposite uh lives in that time period. But I feel like that's for everyone, like you just like I've had those moments as it's life is not linear, I guess is what I'm
Yeah. So, are you ready to get into it?
yes, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we said the year this came out, but we didn't give the month or date, I believe. This album came out August 28th, 2015. We know the sun, what that makes it, but I know you love to guess the less obvious, so I will let you take the first guess on the sun sign. What do you think it is?
What is that? August 28th. That's a
It's definitely a Virgo.
okay, interesting. And was the Post Malone album we just did, was that also Virgo? That was also Virgo.
It was also Virgo.
Interesting. Okay, so this one I wrote down notes as I was listening, and I was surprised. I was surprised at what I thought this album was, but it's just I have to laugh because based off what we talked about about the last album being a serial killer, this one might have similar vibes.
I think
So
it might.
don't listen to the Post Malone episode so you don't think we're crazy. But um yeah, okay, so I was thinking Gemini Sun.
Interesting. Okay. So you know how I roll. If I know the date, I know your sun sign. I have no guesses there. For me, I know it's a Virgo, but contrary to what you think for the sun, I and also how you typically behave in these situations. I got a lot of Scorpio vibes from this album. So my guess for the rising was Scorpio. I think for me, there's a lot of elements of like that dark and mysteriousness that play into this album, and I think that's why I connected with it so much and like really liked it as much as I did. A couple of songs that gave me that was like Castle, which for whatever reason the visual I always get is like the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland, and Roman Holiday. Those two songs like really give me like that craving of power that Scorpio has and control and all of that. So my guess, not saying this is what it is yet, but my guess is Rising is a Scorpio.
This is actually one uh album where I didn't have any Scorpio guesses for the big three. I did have a bunch of Scorpio for individual songs. And I would very much love for there to be Scorpio in the big three because of how much I love this album. Before Rising, I actually guessed Aquarius, but I mean,
Interesting.
big sign. But this album to me, it feels very much kind of what I was talking about before of like paving your own path and not like following the beat of your own drum versus other people's. So that's kind of where I got the Aquarius.
I feel like I had a download at some point when I was listening to it of like this could be something Aquarius, and I could see where you get the Aquarius rising because it definitely has that like individualistic, one of a kind energy to it. So that definitely makes sense. Um, but I think I would like what are the so none of your guesses in the big three are Scorpio, but you said you had a lot of songs that gave you Scorpio energy. How did that not equal to you thinking as you usually do, that this album
I,
was Scorpio associated?
honestly, you should be happy though, because I always say Scorpio.
I
So
know, I'm turning into you.
I know. We're swapping on this one. As I said, I did get Scorpio for quite a few songs, so we can go into that after we talk about the big three. But yeah, I feel like I already explained Aquarius. I will say though, the moon, which is maybe like here's where the water comes in for me. I was thinking of Pisces because it's actually there's a lot of like dream-like aspects on
Interesting.
the album to me.
I think I struggled figuring out a moon sign for this record because while there's I don't know how to let me preface this by saying I love Halsey, but I don't while there's a lot of emotion on the record, it's not an emotional record, if that makes sense. So like to give it a water sign for me doesn't feel right, but also I don't know. It's like it's almost like this album is like a show. Like she's putting on a show. And I don't know, I guess as I talk through it, a sign that masks their emotions and never really reveals how they're thinking, like truly feel not even thinking, how they're truly feeling toward it. I don't know, like maybe some kind of earth. Like I don't want to say
That could be.
Virgo. The download is giving Virgo again, but I don't want to say it's a Virgo moon too, but maybe it is.
I've said triple signs before, so I think you could say double signs.
It's a Virgo moon. It's a freaking Virgo moon. I just feel like there's a lot of like I said, there's a lot of emotion, but it doesn't feel like like real emotions. It's like I'm being mad because you think I should be mad, but I'm not really mad, but I want you to think I'm mad, but I'm keeping back how I actually feel about the situation. Like I get a lot of that energy from this record. It's not wrong, it's not right. There's no wrong or right answers here, folks, but that's kind of what the universe is giving to me right now in this. And I think that's why I struggled so much giving it a moon sign upon the listen through to assign it. Obviously, when I was listening to this 10 years ago, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I don't know. And I guess it goes back to maybe where we both were at in our lives in 2015 of just like, you connected so much with this record. And I think I just really liked this record.
Mhm.
And I didn't necessarily connect to much of it other than the line about Biggie and Nirvana. Uh, but I think maybe that's why I struggled on the emotionality aspect of it with the moon sign.
That, yeah, I could see that. That makes sense because exactly, like on the contrary, like this album, there's so many lines in this album that I was like really deeply connected to.
Hmm. Before we reveal the big three, what was your favorite song on this record? And actually, something we should dive into before we even get there. So, we are talking about Badlands, but for clarity, everyone out there, there's like two versions of this record. And we tried to figure out when each one came out, but apparently they came out the exact same day at the exact same time. So when we're talking about this record, we are talking about the deluxe version because I think that's the one we both tend to go back to, which I think she did something cool in that like it was a deluxe record and she added more songs, but she didn't just tack them on at the end. They're interwoven into the original
Mhm.
album. So like I accidentally clicked on the regular one a couple of weeks ago and Colors played and I was ready for Colors Part 2 to come on and it didn't. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? And then I realized that I clicked the regular one instead of the deluxe. So I'm a big deluxe fan. That being said, what are your favorite songs on this record?
I have quite a few, so that makes it difficult.
For me, I think my go-tos are always Colors, but Colors into Colors Part 2 and Roman Holiday. I think those are the three songs that if I'm doing a playthrough of this record, I don't think I make it to the end of the record because I'm like stuck like replaying those songs.
I love Castle. Definitely gives me Scorpio vibes. I feel like Scorpios are known, like you could literally just be standing there and people be like, "So intimidating." Like, the line about like you shouldn't be so mean and whatnot. It just gives me Scorpio. Hold Me Down. That might be like one of my top favorites off of this album. That's Me is such a Capricorn song. There's the line about like the devil, and Capricorn is associated with the devil card, but also the line, I mean it's somewhat of a dark line, but my Capricorn moon relates to it of like the throw me in the deep end and watch me drown. I
Mhm.
really like get this sense of like it's the Capricorn methodology of like I like throw whatever you want at me. I'm gonna take it on. I'm gonna do it. Like watch me kill it. kind of a thing. So it's kind of like you can put whatever you want on me. I'm gonna push through and make it happen, is what I get from that song.
Mm.
Um, and then I would say I do love Roman Holiday, as you called out.
Yes.
That's why it's so hard for me to talk about this album because I have so many favorites. But I love the song Hurricane as well. And that one actually, I know you talked about getting Scorpio from this album. That one I would love for it to be a Scorpio. The, kind of don't belong to no man, kind of an independent feeling. It could also be Sagittarius, I suppose, but there's something about the darkness of it that leans a little more Scorpio for me. This album is an almost no skips album for me, besides New Americana. But the other one that I love is Coming Down. It's a little bit more of a slower ballady type, maybe not ballad, but it's definitely a slower song. And that one, it feels like there's a lot of longing in that one. So I would have said like Cancer or like a Scorpio Venus.
Now it is time for the big reveal of the big three. And as I am looking at this again, once again, I must say to always follow your freaking gut.
Am I close?
You might have gotten something right.
Yay.
So, the sun, we know, no ifs, ands, or buts, Virgo. The moon, however, and again, always follow your gut because the universe was downloading to me and I pushed it away and I talked myself out of it because it didn't really register. What was your moon guess?
Pisces.
You were close in proximity. Flipped it with your other sign. It's an Aquarius moon.
That makes a lot of sense.
It makes so much sense. Um, and there was a moment when you were talking about the Aquarius rising that I was like, maybe it's an Aquarius moon, threw the thought away. But you were right about Aquarius being in the big three.
Knew it. That one I knew. That was pretty solid for me.
The rising, however, let's go back to your big three guesses. Let's talk about your big three guesses one more time.
The Gemini.
First, it's Gemini.
That also makes so much sense.
Yeah, that is honestly okay. One, clearly you connected to this album. You know this album in and out, and seeing the big three laid out here, like like I do, it is everything that this out. Like this is literally the album. This makes so much sense, especially the Gemini Rising, because it's like two things at once
Yeah.
and it's all over the place. I'm very happy with this reveal. This is like the first one that I've seen that like hasn't been that far off from what we've guessed. Like I think mine were completely out of whack, but this was scary accurate on your end. How do you feel?
I definitely like Gemini. I knew for sure Gemini. It's funny. The ones I knew for sure were in the big three were in the big three. I am not surprised that there's no water in the big three. But I would be curious, as we sometimes go into deeper signs. I would be curious on this one, the Venus and the Mercury.
Okay. Are you thinking that's where there's water?
Potentially.
I'm going to tell you right now, there's not. There is not a single drop of water in this record in like the personal planets.
Yeah. I mean that actually does make a lot of sense. Is there
Is there what?
fire?
There is fire.
Is it a Aries Mercury?
No, it isn't Mercury.
Aquarius?
No, no, no. Air, like it's an air.
Oh. Um, Libra? I did
Yes,
I had some Libra guesses on
Libra Mercury, yeah.
that
And I
makes
think that's because Halsey is a Libra.
Mhm.
So for her to communicate like one on this record. We should definitely be thinking about what the singer or like the writer's Mercury is, or like the Mercury of the album versus the artist's sun sign. Because maybe that plays like an extra role in this too. Because it's kind of funny that this is a Mercury Libra and Halsey is a Libra and she is the communicator. That
Yeah,
feels
that's true.
uncovered like some secret. Like I feel like crazy putting that together.
And then I said Venus. I feel like the Venus, well, honestly, if you hadn't said no water, I would have said Scorpio. Because there's just like a lot of ups and downs. But oh wait, so that's where the fire is.
That's where the fire is, yeah.
So is it a Leo Venus?
Yes, it is.
Interesting. Very
Yes, it is.
interesting.
Um, yeah, this is an insane record. I think again, it's kind of crazy how accurate your guesses were. Like clearly you are tied to this record. Um, for me, I have no songs that can go with any of these signs because I was way off. But would you like to talk about the sun, the moon, and the ascendant in terms of what song represent each one?
Let's see. I actually didn't have any Virgo down, but let's see. For Aquarius, I had down New Americana, which that's me, like that is the number one song that would represent Aquarius.
Yeah,
I actually don't love that song. That's like one of my least favorite songs on this album. I know that
interesting.
was like the biggest one, but I just didn't like it. I don't know. Yeah, but it talks a lot about like a new state of thinking and moving
Yeah,
culture forward. So I think that's like the number one Aquarius to me.
I would agree with that. I think when I was listening to that too, I just kept thinking of the song from Hair of like it's the age of Aquarius because it's like you said, it has that like dawning of a new age, a new thinking, a new way of living, and all of that. So I can definitely see that. I'm kind of sad though that you don't like that song as much. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I don't know. It just never did it for me. But
It's the Biggie line, isn't it? You weren't raised on Biggie and Nirvana.
you're funny, yes. I do appreciate both of them though. Gemini. I had a few. This is my favorite live song of hers. The Gemini to me is Gasoline on this album. Which
Interesting.
I think is actually one of the it's one of the ones that isn't on Badlands, but it is on the deluxe. Um,
Mhm.
I love that song live. The moment when she stops for the crowd to we're trying not to curse on this podcast, but he says, "Do you call yourself a blank hurricane like me?" I like that just every time. It is such a powerful moment in that show to hear so many fans scream that at the top of their lungs. And it gives the like, I don't know that eccentric is the right word, but it's kind of saying like, I might not be to your liking, and that's okay. It's talking a lot about here's all my flaws, but I'm just going to live them out, and I don't care if you think otherwise.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. That makes sense. That makes sense. I do appreciate that both of us love songs that are only on the deluxe and not the original. So we have Rising, we have The Moon. You tried to sneak by without assigning a song for the Virgo Sun
No.
because this is a Virgo Sun album. What do you think it would be?
It's tough, but I would say
I have one in name only. Control.
I was looking at that one, and I was gonna, yeah. Um, that actually it was in my mind. Originally, I was gonna say that was like a Scorpio or Cancer, but Honestly, I mean, Virgo is the sisters. Well, we call it the
It's
official sister sign. Taurus is
yeah.
actually the sister sign, but Virgos and Scorpios are like, two peas in a pod. So yeah, that
Mhm.
makes sense. Well,
Yes, it is definitely a shared trait amongst Scorpios and Virgos and any fixed sign. But I think control makes the most sense for this Virgo Sun record. I think all of my guesses or my assignments would be the same as yours. So for this episode, we have our big three. We have our songs to match the big three.
I have a ton of favorites from this album, as we already talked about. I just really resonated with this album overall, so it's one I go back to quite often.
Yes. And now that we have broken it down, I will leave you to go listen to it once again with knowing what you know now.
Well, and we should say as well, Halsey's new album is coming out soon. Very,
Yes.
actually, I think end of this week. I am very excited for. I love the new song, "Ego," especially. That was a great one.
As Halsey albums go, I think I liked Manic a little more than this one,
Mhm.
but I can feel it in my bones that this new record will be number one for me. I cannot wait. October 25th, I think, whatever the Friday is, I will be first one to stream midnight that night. I'm so ready. Very excited.
And Halsey, if you ever see this, we would love to dive into your birth chart with you. Clearly, I mean, the Libra comes out in your writing, so
Yeah. And I guess I think I wanted this to be a Scorpio rising because I believe she's a Scorpio rising or has Scorpio in her chart somewhere. So maybe this album will. Maybe this coming album will have Scorpio rising.
well, it will be a the sun
It
will
will be. It will be. Okay, there we go. So we're already halfway there.
yeah, October. It's actually the day
25th.
of my birthday, so I consider it an unofficial birthday gift. Thank you so much. um, but yeah, I think Scorpio starts October 22nd, so it is in fact.
Love that. Thanks so much for listening to the Cosmic Cadence podcast. If you like what you heard, please take the time to subscribe and like, rate, and review wherever you listen. It really helps us out.
You can also find us on socials at Cosmic Canes Pod on all platforms. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.